Hey everybody, my name is Erin and today I am doing a review on Witches Steeped in Gold. I'm super excited to be doing this review. I got an ARC from Netgalley and I finished it just in time. It comes out April 20th, which may be today if I'm getting things uploaded when I want to. We'll see. You may notice that this is a different spot. I am actually in my classroom. Today is a training day and it's my lunchtime and I hadn't filmed a video, so I thought why not. Alright, Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. This is a YA debut novel and it follows two witches who are both out for revenge. They have very different motives, very different reasoning, but they end up getting thrown together and have to form a very shaky alliance. Our first main character is Jasmine. She is the daughter of the Diana, who is the leader and has just kind of taken over to be the main ruler. She betrayed the last royal family to become this leader. She also does some human sacrifices in the name of protecting the island. Her daughter doesn't agree with it, especially after her sister gets killed in the process. We also follow our other main protagonist, Ira, and her parents were killed during the overthrow. She was sent into a sort of prison. She's waiting to earn her magical powers so that she can get revenge on that royal family. Let's look a little bit deeper. This is labeled as YA, and I definitely think it has some of those typical YA feels to it. When I'm reviewing a YA, I definitely review it differently than I would some higher fantasy. I think it would be a disservice to hold this to the same standards that I did Lord of the Rings because it has a different feel to it, and it shouldn't be docked for that. A good YA is a good YA. All right, first of all, beautiful cover. Can we just appreciate for a second? This book has a lot of diversity in it. It's based off a lot of Jamaican influence and has some LGBTQIA plus rep in the side characters. I think the personalities of the two main characters and even a lot of the side characters were pretty strong. You definitely got a feel for who they were, what their motives were, why they felt the way that they did, where they were coming from. Everything felt very true and made sense for most of it. I am going to dock one point because I wish I could have seen just a little bit more from each of the two main characters. I did really get to know Ira, and I loved Ira a lot, but Jasmine always felt a little bit weaker as a character to me. I'm going to give personality a 4 out of 5. Character development. Now, both of these girls go through a lot of struggles and definitely have some hard times. There are some trigger warnings that I would definitely recommend looking up based on just the magic system, the violence of war, those type of things. And both characters see some of that. I do think their development as they slowly go from kids to leaders just felt a little bit more told than shown. If there had been a few more instances of them actually leading throughout the book, I probably would have believed it a little bit more. Give this a 3 out of 5. Alright, side characters. There are a lot of side characters in this story. Both girls have alliances with several different people. They have members of their order that they trust, and really you don't know who to trust. The side characters get their due diligence. A lot of them feel very fleshed out, almost as known as the main characters. However, I don't think there were any side characters that I was falling in love with. There weren't any that stood out to me as, okay, this one's my favorite, I really want to see more of this person. I think they all felt very real, but none of them stole my heart. So I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 as well. Alright, relationships. I'm giving relationships a 5 out of 5 because every relationship in here is incredibly complex. Between Jasmine and her mother, between Jasmine and Ira, between Ira and her order, all of these relationships are super complex. As the book goes along, you realize that this person is actually working with this person, that these two people know each other from some other part of their life. There is just a lot of shady business going down, and these two girls just keep finding themselves deeper and deeper in all of it, and I loved it. So, characters overall get a 16 out of 20. I think it was definitely a strong point in this book. I think all parts of it probably could have been a little bit stronger. Plot is up next, and we have 5 categories for this. I am definitely a plot-driven reader, so this is something that I look very closely at. We're going to start with the timeline of this book. I think the pace of this book moved quickly, and didn't really leave a lot of extra space. There was a lot going on and all of it needed to be there. But I did find myself getting confused quite often. They would make jumps without really any indication. They would jump a week in advance or even a month in advance and just say, okay, this event's passed. And you were kind of left with the feeling like, I wanted to see what was happening during that time. So I'm going to give the timeline a 3 out of 5. I think the pacing was fine, but the jumps really threw me off. Action. I don't know that I would say this book was action heavy. I don't think it was the main focus. And there was time action was definitely skipped over. For example, the sacrificial rites that take place on the island start with a trial of several people and slowly get narrowed down to one who becomes the sacrifice that protects the island. You don't see any of those trials. You get told, okay, the next trial happened, we lost another person, but you don't see any of those trials, and man, did I want to know what was going on with those. I also think I struggled to picture a lot of the action sequences. They weren't quite as clear or descriptive as I would have liked, but you do get some good behind-the-scenes action. I think the best descriptions didn't come from the upfront battles, but the sly political moves. So I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 as well. All right, the conflict. I think this was an incredibly believable part of the book. Jasmine wants to become a leader because she feels like her mom is not doing it right. Ira wants to get some revenge. And the way they move towards that goal is very realistic. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 5 out of 5. It was not only intriguing, but also made sense. All right, satisfaction. This is kind of the buy-in you had and how the book wrapped up. Now, this book definitely sets up for a sequel, but it doesn't leave you hanging. You get kind of the short arc completion while still leaving the overarching arc kind of unanswered, but it feels like a good place to stop. And the way things ended, I would say, was pretty satisfactory. Again, I wish I had a little bit more detail in some of the final resolutions. Also, there are some character decisions that were kind of surprising, but really good. Let's talk about the magic system. This is definitely a soft magic system, so if that's something you're hesitant about, definitely know that going in. There aren't a lot of limitations as far as what you can do. It's more limited by what you have. This magic system has a lot of different pieces that I did kind of struggle to connect, see how they all fit together, but each one was so unique and really enjoyable. It's based off Jamaican witchcraft, has a lot of interesting components. There are everything from spells you have to learn to links between blood to bone magic to relics. There's a lot going on. It's really fun to read. I just wanted to know how it all tied together. It felt like you had a bunch of different pieces, but there wasn't really a cohesive link to it all. That being said, I really loved all of those pieces, and again, super unique, loved it. So I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. So pretty high marks here as well. They get a 19 out of 25 for plot. Our last category is the world building, and we're starting with the lore. You get lore sprinkled in throughout this, from old stories that have been passed down to songs that have been passed down to even some family history. I wouldn't say there was a lot, but it did feel like I got a good understanding. Definitely got a good feel for how this world was built and how it came to be in the state that it is when we find it with Ira and Jasmine. Not only do you slowly get lore for the world, you also slowly get backstories for each of the girls as some of their secrets are revealed to you. Ira gets, I think, more of that, and that's probably why she was my favorite of the two main characters, but you get background for both, including even some of the side characters. I would have loved to see more of Jasmine's background. She was kind of a little bit more one note, and while her motives and story were interesting, I just wanted to know more of her as a person, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a 3 out of 5. There is definitely a sense of society and class system on this island. There's a lot of vocab thrown at you, especially at the beginning of this book, and so you hear about different groups of people, but it's hard to kind of distinguish between all of them or tell exactly what their place in society is, and it never really gets fully explained. So I wanted more from the society piece of it. I never really felt like I had a grasp on it, and that was kind of frustrating to me. But the main characters' places are very obvious, and the way society is run is also very obvious. It's more of just putting in who fits where. All right, the culture is kind of the same as the magic system, very cool. You definitely got a good picture of both, but it wasn't as clear and as detailed as I may have wanted it to be. But I think culture was definitely more well defined than the society itself. You learned the magic systems and how that integrated into their beliefs, their way of life, and even their celebrations. You get a really good look at two distinct celebrations for both orders, and it was really cool to see how they differed. So I really loved looking at the culture and the way magic influenced the cultures and was used differently throughout the cultures. Some are seen as more dark magic, just a really complex cultural system that is set up. A little bit more detail, again, probably would have given me everything I would have wanted on it, but I did really love the way that these two cultures are shown. All right, so we ended up with a 14 out of 20 for the world building. The last thing I could do is give it a bonus. I honestly kind of want to give it a bonus for that beautiful cover, but I feel like that kind of takes away from giving such an intense review style to just say, here's a point for a cover. Let's go ahead and get a final total. All right, so we end up with 49 out of 67 points. This ends up being about a 4.5 stars. I did give it a 4-star and I think a 4.25 on Storygraph, where you can give a little bit more detail. This is a great read if you like YA. I think if you like higher fantasy, it's still a good read. I find it lacking a few details, but not lacking story-wise, if that makes sense. I don't know. That's kind of how I felt. And again, I think it's just a really good book. I'm planning on buying it, so I have a hard copy. I don't think I could say no to that cover. Let me know what you think if you're going to get it. Let me know if you have any questions or if you have any books you want me to review. And I will see you later. Bye, guys.